it was seeing people like myself with one hand, where I was like, they're doing something. Why can't I? There's no difference between us. I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew that I wanted to compete and enjoy doing sport at a really, really high level.
Welcome to Dive Beyond Sport, the podcast where performance meets humanity. We are joined today by Sebastian Musson. Welcome.
Hello, how are you?
It's great to meet you, first of all. I'm super excited to have this conversation. Firstly, whenever I come across someone like yourself with a very obvious disability, I often get so caught up in imagining or trying to figure out in my own head, like what's actually happened to cause the injury, the disability. And that generally makes me just stare, which then ends up being a bad look, and I kind of catch myself staring and I'm like, oh no, I shouldn't be looking too much, and I probably then cause the person more discomfort by standing there staring rather than just asking what happened. So
Yeah.
my first question is, with yourself and your injury, what happened?
So I don't have my left hand. I was born with my disability. So nothing happened in my case. I was born without all of my left hand, including all of the wrist bones. So all I have is my two bones of my arm, and that's it. And for me, I've always had it. I've always got used to it. Never worn a prosthetic. So it's just something I've got along with, really. Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously you're a climber, and
Yep.
so hands are very important for climbing,
Yes.
right? Obviously, I think so. So from what I understand, you're in the AU category for
Yes, that is correct.
for paraclimbing. So could
Yes.
you maybe, just to kind of give a bit more context on you, could you kind of explain like what that means, and then
Yeah.
maybe also talk a bit about what it's like to climb without a left hand?
Yes. Yeah. So my category is the AU2 category, which is known as the amputee upper second variation. So in my category, everyone has one hand. Can vary in length and everything like that, but it has to be between the elbow and the wrist. So anywhere within there. And it changes from people to people. It can be either side, doesn't matter, but somewhere between the elbow and the wrist. And then climbing without a hand is very different to climbing with. So for me, a lot of my strength and the way I stay on the wall comes from my chest and squeezing in. So a lot of compression movements compared to if you're climbing with hands, you're pulling down, you're using a lot of finger strength, and you're using more of your arms and your bicep and your back, where I'm using a lot more of my chest and squeezing in a lot more.
Okay. I mean, I've experimented a little bit with bouldering. So I'm from Sheffield, so
Yes.
a hotspot
One of
for
the homes of
climbing.
climbing.
Yes,
Home
really.
of climbing.
That's it. The Peak District. Let's go.
Yeah.
But obviously, to some degree, like that's still kind of, it's still kind of difficult to imagine. And I remember watching the documentary, The Dawn Wall, which I'm sure
Oh yeah.
you've seen or know about, or at least, and I can't remember I can't remember the name of the main guy.
Dawn will be like called Tommy Caldwell, I believe.
Yes.
Yes.
And so he got one of his fingers
Yeah.
chopped off in an accident.
Yeah.
And then obviously, so like it's an incredible documentary, but then how much that changed his climbing, and like doing some like crazy like finger hook stuff and thumb hook stuff to just like make do. But then it was his index finger, I think, which is even more insane. But obviously in your case, like that's kind of, it's obviously even more extreme. And I don't know, just I remember this term, what is it called? Like a barn door, where you're like, you kind of hang on and you like
Yes.
start to swing because
Yes.
you can't. So
Yeah, where
I don't
you
know.
swing out.
Yeah, is that a problem for you? How do you manage that? Like,
So yes, it's a problem for all climbers, really. For me, it varies on what the climb's like and which way the holds are pointing, all of that sort of stuff. So because I spend a lot of time in compression, squeezing in. When a hold spins where I'm not able to squeeze in with the left arm, it gets a little more awkward because I have to find a really unique body position where the climb works for me. And a lot of time, it's a lot harder to do, especially when in normal commercial climbing. So what I'm training on, the routes aren't set for me. They're not set for me to climb with one hand. They're set for people with two arms, two legs, everything that nothing in theory wrong with them. So no disability.
I think that's a really interesting analogy, which I'd be interested to hear how you've also applied to just general life and living with one hand. And, a lot of we're obviously lucky here in this country, first of all, that there is a lot of infrastructure that does accommodate for people with disability. But, kind of growing up, since you were born without a hand, going through school and, all that process with one hand, what were the things that were not built for you, but you had to just make adjustments for and just figure out, day to day?
Yeah. There's a lot of things that were, and a lot of simple tasks, really. So one of the main ones was especially when you're a child and you're given Velcro shoes for ages, then you go into having to do your laces because that was something that challenged me even for a few months or so, where I was just having to get used to trying to do something where it's so fiddly anyway with your fingers that to do it with only one hand and try and do it was a bit of a challenge. But I always, whatever challenge has been faced to me, I've always tried to just figure it out and not let having one hand define who I am and dictate what I do and what I don't do.
And what was it that kind of gave you that, I guess, confidence, belief, whatever kind of word you want to use to describe it,
Yep.
to be able to do that? Is it something that was encouraged by your parents? Was it natural, innate within you? Like where did that kind of come from?
Everyone around me was so supportive, and no one tried to hold me back in any way. So I was always being pushed to figure my own way around doing things. And it was then not only my family, but everyone at school. Because you spend so long with your classmates and everything. So in primary school, I spent 7 years with the same group of people that every normal and what I did was, and how I did things was normal to them. And one made an effort to change something because of one hand. And it's the same thing that went into secondary school for another 5 years. No one cared, which was really good. And it meant that I could live like anyone else, really.
yeah, obviously it's fantastic that people supported you and you felt like you had that from around you, obviously your family, but friends and school friends as well. And
Yeah.
but did you feel different, or was it just part of your experience, normal?
No, I never felt different because it was just my normal. Because I obviously never experienced anything different. That was it, and it is what it was. I think if I had an accident and was amputated, then yeah, it probably would have felt different. But because I've never experienced anything else, it was all normal, and that was it. I just got on with.
I think that was quite a cool thing to experience, because I think, especially at school's just such a, I don't know, it's a challenging time for everyone, and it can be very challenging for certain people. And I think it could be very easy for you to have this difference and for kids to not support you in the way they did, which is amazing to hear. But what I think is super cool about you from what I've read and kind of seen so far is that, London 2012 was a huge inspiration for you in terms of the Paralympics, and it's something that you always wanted. And you were what, 4 in 2012, right? 4 years old,
Six, I
6 years
believe.
old.
I think I
Okay,
was six. Yeah.
yeah. Either way, ridiculous.
Yeah.
Right, that makes me feel terrible. But that's super cool that you kind of saw that and you decided at that point that you wanted to become an Olympian, but before you had sorry, a Paralympian, but before you had found your sport.
Yeah.
I had a very similar inspiration with Athens 2004. That was the games that I kind of first watched at the age of 9. But I had just started diving at the time, and the only reason why I watched diving was because I had just started. I wouldn't have heard of it otherwise. So I kind of saw that and I was like, that is what I want. I want to be involved in that. Whereas it seems like you watched it. Paraclimbing wasn't in the Paralympics.
Nope.
You didn't know what path you were going to take. Why was it that, you felt so certain that you could become a Paralympian at that point before you'd even found your sport?
So it was back in 2012 when, at the time, I was just playing rugby, and I was playing rugby for fun. That's all it was. And it was seeing people like myself with one hand, where I was like, they're doing something. Why can't I? Like, there's no difference between us. Like, at the time, obviously, I didn't have a sport. I didn't know what I wanted, but I knew that I wanted to go and compete and enjoy doing sport at a really, really high level. And it was that kind of that drive, and no one's saying no. No, because no one said no to it. And that was kind of the driving force behind every decision I've made. And it just so happened that climbing, that opportunity arrived, and I've kind of gone with it, really.
That's amazing. I just want to kind of acknowledge that what you said even more, because that's what the London Paralympics especially was all about. It was about creating that inspiration with the TV coverage and all the different shows that kind of were a bit of a spin-off of the games, to really engage people. And it's actually really cool to speak to someone who was directly influenced by that event. I don't know, like, if it's hard to imagine if that wasn't there, if the coverage wasn't so good and you didn't have that inspiration. Can you imagine what your trajectory might have been?
To be honest, I don't know. I don't know whether I would have even gone into all the sports side of everything. I probably would have gone down the path of education that I was going on. Go down education, do all my GCSEs, my A levels, go off to university, and kind of follow that path. But it was, obviously, I don't remember those games anymore because it was so long ago, but obviously there was something there that inspired me so much to decide to pursue sport and just take this other path down in life.
I mean, I absolutely love that, and I think like the power of sport is a phrase used quite a lot, but I think that's it, and I think, yeah, unfortunately, I don't think things are going in the right direction necessarily in terms of coverage and grassroots participation and funding and those sorts of things. It's hard to say exactly, but either way, it's just so incredible for me to hear that side of your story and think like, wow, like, isn't that so cool that when kids get inspired by something so real as that, so powerful as that. But then to actually go to the point when you started climbing, how did that come about? Was it an instant click?
Yep. So I started climbing, it was back in either 2018 or 2019, the October of, when I played rugby at the time. And it was a Wednesday night where my training decided, well, the weather decided that it was cancelling the training. And all the pitches were waterlogged. We couldn't go train. And it was my dad he used to climb when he was younger, mainly outdoors. It was, and he suggested, let's go climbing, because he had seen this local climbing wall being advertised. And he was like, yeah, let's go do that. So we did. And immediately I was hooked with it. It was. And we kept going back, and we went back, and it was about 3 months where I was doing both climbing and rugby. And then I kind of made the decision that to stop playing rugby. As much as I loved it, I was like, I can see a future in climbing, which I couldn't see playing rugby at the time, because there is no pathway in that sport for disabilities like mine. But it was during that time I'd met other para athletes in climbing, and they kind of persuaded me to start taking it a little bit serious. But they invited me down to the national comps in Sheffield. So I went along and saw everyone on the team who I am teammates with now and former athletes. And it was seeing them who then inspired me to keep going.
I mean, I've seen the mention of Anita Agarwal,
Yes.
who was a very inspiring figure for you, and I can pinpoint those figures for me in terms of the people that really got me obsessed with diving and really got me hooked on the sport, but also taught me how to do it really well, where I could get the best out of myself. What was her impact on you in your early days in climbing, and I guess now, how's that kind of relationship developed?
So she's the one who introduced me to the competition side of everything. She's my first ever coach as well. So she took me along to my first national competitions and all of that sort of stuff. And she introduced me to everyone, because I was so shy growing up. And it was at the point where I was hid disability. I hid who I was. So I'd always have my left hand or my left arm in my pocket. So I'd be walking lopsided. And it was her who introduced me to this whole world that I've never seen before. And since then, she's now one of my teammates. She is. She's no longer my coach, because I've now got some of the GB coaches, and I've got my own personal coach who I see multiple times a week. But she introduced me to everyone, and everyone who I know now was through her, really.
So, okay, and so being surrounded by her and your teammates, so that allowed you to fully embrace yourself?
Yep. Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Because I was very shy, like 12, 13-year-old at the time, where I was kind of getting pushed very fastly down a path where I didn't know what was going to happen, what was going to come from it, or anything. Because at the time, there was no Paralympic announcement. There was nothing like that. It was just, this is something cool. I could give it a go. There's people like me. I'm somewhat all right at it. We'll see what happens.
I mean, I just want to touch on what you said a little bit more about you walking with your left hand in your pocket more often than not, which I really didn't anticipate you saying you found, a bit of, I guess, a disconnect with who you were, because, from what you said earlier about how everyone around you was so supportive about you not having a hand, and, it was just normal. What kind of changed to the point where you felt that you had to hide it, and it made you feel uncomfortable with yourself?
So it was my social settings. It was. So in school and around people I knew, it was normal. It was then when I went outside of the house or outside of school, it was then when it became something where I would notice people staring. So it's then when you feel overwhelmed.
The people like me.
Yeah, it's then when you feel overwhelmed and almost isolated. Even if I'm with my parents or family, whatever, you noticed it. And it's something now that I've learned to deal with and how it all happens really.
I mean, it's a really important point, and it's kind of why I asked the question at the start as well, because as I say, when I catch myself doing that, it's out of intrigue more than anything.
Yes.
But I forget how it might make the other person feel
Yeah.
when I am kind of processing what I'm seeing in my head. For example, I saw this sign language conversation going on, and
Yes.
I was just trying to not stare, just simply
Yeah.
because I was intrigued. But then, I've experienced it on the other hand when I've gone to China, and people over there will be staring really hard at me because they haven't seen people like me before, and they're probably intrigued, but they don't understand how that makes me feel. So I
Yes.
guess in that situation, how would you want people, if you could like almost have like a telepathic connection with that person in that
Yeah.
moment when they're staring, what would you want them to do? Would you want them to just ask you the question, or would you want them to just ignore it? Like, I don't know. Like, what do you think?
I love people when they come up to me. When they come up to me and just ask and we have a conversation, it's great. But if you asked me that question maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you would have got a completely different answer of saying, just leave me alone, just look, have a quick glance and that'll be it. But now I've learned how to deal with stuff like this, where I'm more than happy for people to come up to me, ask about it, and go in those social situations.
And so that development, how much do you attribute your experiences with sport, with climbing, with meeting, having your team and meeting similar people? How much do you attribute that to that? And
I attribute almost all of it
wow.
because it was the sport that pushed me into the situations where I was uncomfortable. And it was watching how other people dealt with it and then having them say, oh, yeah, this is normal, to the point where I realized, oh, yeah, it is. And now it is normal. And I try and make it normal to everyone.
Yeah, isn't that's such a powerful message? And you're 19.
Yes, 19.
19. Yeah, that's impressive maturity, I think, and a very well-rounded way of looking at it. And so one thing I want to touch on now is obviously you said that when you started climbing, you said you saw a future in it.
Yes.
But at that stage, it wasn't a Paralympic sport. So, I mean, how did you? Well, I guess first of all, like what? Well, I mean, you touched on that a little bit already, but like, what gave you that feeling of like, I think there's a future for me here? Again, was it seeing the other people, or how naturally like good at it you were? Firstly,
So I spent something like 3 years climbing, just climbing for fun and just messing about really, before I went and did my first national competition. And I was just having fun, meeting people, enjoying climbing. And then I was like, oh, these exist. Because even though I knew about them, I was like, I'm now old enough to be able to compete at them. Because we have a minimum age of competition, because there is no youth categories. It's just an open gender. You compete against people of your disability. So,
open gender,
no, sorry, not open gender, open age.
open age,
Okay. Open age.
But
yeah.
men and women
Yeah.
still separate.
Men and women,
Okay.
open age, where you're competing against people of the same disability. So at least now as well, I'm the youngest competitor by 6 to 7 or 8 years. Yeah, even at the international competitions now.
How much? I assume that strength, technique, in climbing takes a long time to build.
Yes.
Okay, so how much of a disadvantage is that for you? Or
Varies a lot. So because I've been doing it from an early age compared to a lot of people, my body got conditioned to it very fast. It did, to the point where I'm now able to be training 6 days a week with multiple sessions each day. And if I had started maybe climbing 2 to 3 years ago, I would be towards the back of the field struggling so much more than even against the people that are older than me. So it was starting early compared to a lot of people.
I mean, so that's super interesting because in our sport, like kids are taken from as early as possible. Essentially, I started diving at 9. I was selected when I was 8. Freddie, I think you're a little bit earlier, right?
yeah, I mean, I was almost 8, but
Yeah.
yeah.
So
technically
like,
7.
you know, that kind of age range,
Yes.
like 6, 7, 8, 9, that's when, you know, clubs are really looking to recruit divers from schools because to teach all the, you know, gymnastic elements and all these things just much easier when you teach them young because the fear as you get older
Yeah.
just skyrockets essentially. And if you
Yeah.
don't have the capabilities at the foundation level, then you'll never really be able to get over that fear. So obviously that's a huge advantage for you, of course, but it means that there's a lot of people coming into climbing very late on.
Yeah.
And is that solely in the Paralympic pathway, or is that also present in the Olympic pathway?
It's mainly present in the Paralympic because a lot of the time, especially with some of the other categories, like the AL2 category, which is amputee and lower. So from like the knee down to the ankle, it will come from accidents and then amputation. So you find a lot of people come into it later in life because they've had something go wrong. So they've had an amputation or they've potentially had a stroke or something like that, where I'm in the situation where I was born with it. So I was able to come in at such a younger age. Because if you look at the Olympic pathway, there's climbers competing from the ages of 7 or 8, and they're going through the youth program and then all the way through into the seniors.
So that's a lot closer to our kind of diving experience than I guess that kind
Yes.
of younger level. So what was your reaction, Seb, when it got announced that it would be in the
Yeah.
paraclimber would be in the LA Olympics?
Yeah. So there was a lot of rumors there were. So we had known that we had put an application forward to try to be included. Obviously, we had no idea if we were going to be. So I believe it was in my second year of competing in 2024 when I was on the plane home from a competition. So I was at a World Cup in Innsbruck in Austria, where on the plane journey home, they had announced that we were going to be competing at LA. So when I landed back in London, the first thing I did was turn my phone on, and there it was. My phone spammed with notifications of this is actually happening now. And it was almost instant relief because I knew this is possible. There's actually something big here. So even though just doing all the international comps and national comps are incredible, there was no limelight to everything. There was no light compared to what there is now. So having that announcement allowed me to go all in. And it was that decision of being included where I was like, yes, I'm going to have a gap year of going to university. I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to go compete and try and go all the way.
It's interesting that you use the word relief as the kind of overriding feeling when that announcement was made. because, when I'm thinking about, the whole picture of 6-year-old Seb watching London 2012 and having this dream, and then committing to this sport before you know that you actually are able to achieve this dream, and then you're however many years deep into the sport, locked in, and then the announcement comes that you can actually tick that box and achieve 6-year-old Seb's dream. Like, yeah, I can understand the feeling of relief, because you're then like very much in a process, and the North Star all of a sudden becomes super clear and really motivating. Without that, what was the North Star? What was helping you to show up every day? Was it just the pure love and joy of doing
Yeah,
it?
it was that feeling of freedom that climbing gives, and that ability to do something that a lot of people don't think you can do. And I was just enjoying climbing and the feeling of climbing and everything that
Yeah.
was around me, just having fun, really. And then competition climbing had its own different thing, really.
And then was there like a shift at all? Like once that announcement was made and it was like,
Yeah.
okay, this is real, this goal can be achieved. Has there been a shift in that innate feeling whilst doing the sport that
Yeah,
you love?
so when the announcement got made, I was doing my A levels at the time. So believe I was first or second at my A levels. I think it was for second year. And all my parents had always said my education comes first. And it was that announcement where they had said, you're always going to be there. Go and pursue this and then come back to everything. So it was the first time where they were like, go do your sport.
Well, I literally, as soon as you went, I was literally like, your parents sound amazing.
Yeah, they're great people. They help a lot with so many things.
They sound like it. I mean, my parents were like that as well. Like they really supported my career. My dad would fully support, but he was like in the background. He wouldn't kind of get involved. He'd drive me wherever I needed to go. He'd pay for everything I needed to be paid for, and I knew he was stretching himself as well financially
Yeah.
sometimes. But like there was never any pressure on performance. There was never like you have to do this if you want to continue, or you have to get these grades to go and do these competitions and whatnot. Like there was no pressure, so I was able to just explore and just like, as you say, have fun and just play and enjoy what I was doing. And I had that deep desire to do it really well to the highest level. But before that became an important, before it became a thing, and actually probably like somewhat similar timing to you, because when I made the switch to Jamaica in 2011, my first international season was 2012. So I had 4 years to get myself up to Olympic level. So it's almost like aligned with you that you had this announcement in 2024, so you got now 4 years to get locked in, for the Olympics, for the Paralympics, which is like it's such a nice period of time to just like really build through and learn everything that you need to learn, because everything that you've been doing so far, yes, I'm sure has been great, but the world of international competition, I imagine, has been very different to maybe what you expected.
Yes, yeah, especially since the announcement. So much has actually changed in the sport where everything's become almost a little bit more professional, especially in the way things have been running and how we're actually treated as athletes. Yeah. Because we were just competitors. We were people doing a sport. And now we're athletes where we're professional. Like we're doing something at the highest level possible now.
So you actively feel that shift. I mean, you used the word, you use the term like more inclusive. And so do you feel like it's almost like a status elevation for the para world, almost to like professional athletes? You feel like there's that been almost like mental shift, or?
Yes, there's been a big shift, but it's been a really interesting one because yes, paraclimbing has been included in LA28. However, not every single para category has been. So we've got 4 of our 10 categories included in the Paralympics.
Okay.
So we were told we were included, but didn't know who was going. So we knew that we would have people go in, but didn't know who, of what categories, and how many. So it was still there. So that was when a lot of people started guessing what was going to happen. And it was only last year when we found out what categories were going. And fortunately enough, mine was there.
Okay. So wow. So the 4 categories are AU,
Yep. AL. So
AL,
the lower. Yeah.
knee and below.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Then RP1, which is range and power of the most severe.
Okay.
So a lot of them will be in wheelchairs and stuff like that, will have cerebral palsy, that sort of stuff. And then the other is, this is where it's split between the 2 genders, where it's B1 male and B2 female. So there are visually impaired categories. So B1 is they wear a blindfold, and B2 they don't have to. But it was number of athletes and how many people were attending the international comps.
And so then within those categories, you compete within different disciplines of, I mean, my climbing knowledge is limited, but bouldering, lead, speed.
So that's true for the Olympics and the able-bodied athletes.
Okay.
For us, we compete in one discipline.
Okay.
Which is known as lead. However, it's a top rope system and twin ropes. So we don't have to do anything. So we go on the big walls that the able-bodied athletes do. So it's not bouldering or speed. We just have to get as high as we can. But we don't have to do any of the clipping or anything like that. We just focus on the pure climbing.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So that applies across all categories.
Yeah.
And you've got these 4 categories.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry, and just to clarify about the men and women.
Yes.
So in the blind categories
are 2 separate. Yeah, so it's B1 male and B2 female.
Yeah.
And then
so
all
in
of the others are
sorry.
both male and female.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Ah, okay. Wow. Wow.
Like,
Yeah,
why? Do you know why male is B1 and why female is B2? Like,
I don't know. We, as athletes, we were never given a full answer.
Interesting.
And I don't think we will. But it was just something that they decided to do because we were always going to be limited on the number of medals we were given at LA. We knew not, because 10 is a lot. It is. For 10 categories is a lot of people. So we knew it was going to be reduced, but obviously we didn't know how.
Yeah, I mean, we've spoken to a Paralympic before, Ali Jawad, and you know, I've also learned a lot about the Paralympics and classifications and everything through him and through some others, and you know, it's a very feel like it's an imperfect system, but there's not many ways that you can make it perfect because it's never going to suit, like, whatever system they decide is never going to suit everybody.
Yes. Yeah. I'm fortunate enough with my classification that I only did one classification where it's quite decisive. So we have to get x-rays of my left arm and everything like that. And it was, if you are missing the hand between the elbow and the wrist, you're in. But then for a lot of other categories, there's a lot of changing around with the rules to try and make something that works for a lot of people and to make it as fair as possible. But fortunately for me, I've never had to deal with that. But a lot of people have to go through the stress of getting reclassified and everything like that. So my classification is confirmed. I don't have to get classified ever again, at least to my knowledge. But a lot of people have to get reclassified every 2 to 3 years.
Every 2 to 3 years?
Yes, yeah,
Okay.
to some people.
And that's because of rule changes, or just to make sure, because there's fine lines and.
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
rule changes and them trying to make it as fair as possible.
Yeah. So then for you specifically, Seb, obviously, like what style of climbing like benefits you? Obviously, you travel the world. The routes are always different. The holds are different. Everything's different. Like, so what are you hoping for? Let's say
I'm hoping for really steep walls, so something really overhanging, which is going to require more of the upper body strength. So something really powerful, but at the same time quite technical. So where you've got to be really strong, but also precise with everything you do. That's what I hope for a lot of the time it comes.
so. It's not like small fiddly like footholds that.
So yeah,
That's not what you're after, or?
So I like the small
Oh,
footholds
okay.
because it means you can't just power your way through something, and the whole thing's not just muscle based. Who's the strongest? It's who's strong, but can also climb really precisely and really well.
Okay. So it's a bit of a like a kind of fusion.
Yeah, kind of.
For a layman. I mean, I suppose as well though, I'm just super curious, like how your right arm.
Yes.
You basically are you ever able to rest your right arm almost at all?
Yeah, I can do, because what I find is I'll use techniques such as like a heel hook, where I'm putting my heel onto a hold, which is acting as a third arm, to say.
Yeah.
And that's what's keeping me on. I can then take my hand off and rest, pretty much.
This is all super interesting. I'm learning a lot about climbing, and I got to go watch some of the climbing in Paris. I watched the I can't remember. It might have been a bit of the lead, and definitely the speed. The speed was exciting, but I couldn't believe how steep and overhanging the walls were when I looked at it from a different angle.
Yes.
But it's a really intriguing sport. It's interesting to know more about. And I actually went climbing not long ago, at like a local climbing center, and I found it so hard. My forearms were absolutely done for weeks afterwards, and it's tough. But I can appreciate the inherent satisfaction of completing it and getting to the top of the wall, especially when you've kind of had a few attempts at it and a few failures. It's such a technical sport, but it's something that's so accessible. So, you've spoken about the importance of, or the value, I guess, of starting it young, and the benefits that can carry. So, why should people want to get more involved in climbing?
I think everyone should get involved in climbing because, well, one, it's a full body sport. It is. No part. If you don't work a muscle, that's exposed. It is. And it is really accessible because no one's compared to the top level athletes. No one's compared to the Olympians. They aren't. Everyone is their own individual person. And because we've got our like the way in which climbs are set and the gradient scale, it varies on people that have never even touched a hold before to people that have been climbing for 15 plus years. I tell everyone to give it a go because one is so accessible, but then two is the community. Everyone is so friendly. Like, I won't go into a climb center now without speaking to at least someone that I do not know. And it's that community where friendly enough that if you go into a gym by yourself, by the end of your session, you'll be in a group of 4 to 8 people.
That's so cool. And I feel like kind of seeing this evolution of your journey and the way that you summarize it right there, that's really beautiful for me to hear, and the fact that like that's what you want to share with other people. And yeah, does that like match your reflection?
Yes, pretty much, where it's gone full circle really. And because I love the sport so much, I enjoy sharing that passion and helping get new people in to the sport. It's something that I do as well alongside my training. So because I work part-time alongside training, I do coaching sessions where I bring brand new people into the sport and share my love and my passion for it to them. And it's great to see them keep returning and enjoying the sport as much as I do.
Super inspiring, for one, but it's also the start of building a legacy in the sport for yourself. And, you know, I imagine the hope is obviously your performance and your status developing as a climber will just add to that legacy. But with all that being said, you know, you've spoken openly about, you know, your ambition for LA and for beyond maybe. What would a Paralympic gold medal in LA represent for you?
For me, the gold medal would kind of seal everything off. It would prove that anything is possible, that you can come from any background and do whatever you want. And as long as you put the effort, you can succeed. You're the one who dictates your future, not anyone else. Not the person in the playground that tells you, oh, you can't join in. It's you deciding that I can do this. And it will prove not only to me, but to all the people that I see in climbing centers that anything's possible. And if you just put your mind to it and go for it, why won't it happen?
That sounds like a pretty awesome legacy to me, yeah. As well. That's beautiful. Seb, we like to kind of finish every episode with this question, which is if your life were a film, were a movie, what would the title be? And then we obviously like to use that question as, you know, or in the name of the episode.
Yes.
So do you have a name for us?
I have something, I reckon. I quite like hold on. Yeah. Trying to think of something that sounds nice, but it's quite hard because there's so many different things that are going through my mind that could be possible.
Yeah.
Let's work through it. What's in your mind?
So I really like being able to reach forwards. So reaching something that seems impossible yet is possible. But then also like that anyone can do this. And it's not just me. And there's so many other people on this journey, kind of.
First thing that's coming to my mind is something like just reaching for the impossible.
That's what I was kind of thinking and leaning towards.
I feel like that kind of, or it doesn't quite touch the whole anyone can do anything, but it
Yes,
does cover the fact that a lot of people will feel that a lot of things are impossible for them, and they won't even attempt it because they feel it's impossible.
yes,
But what you're saying is that you should just reach for the impossible. If you
Yeah.
if you feel like it's impossible, definitely reach for it. Definitely go for
Yeah.
it, because why not? Like,
exactly.
I mean, there's probably things to lose, but what is there to lose?
Well, yeah, exactly. Like at the end of the day, it's just sport,
Yeah, exactly.
and you're having fun. Like, go for it. Why not?
Yeah, and also it's like it's such a good the climbing's such a good analogy as well, isn't it? For life, and like if you don't reach, you'll have no maybe you fall off the wall, but then that gave you information. You can try again.
Exactly.
You'll be better the next time, or you'll
Yeah.
have more information the next time. It's a
Yes.
really nice.
Yeah. There's always another time.
Yeah. Yeah, and if you don't try, like you'll never know
Exactly.
as well.
Yeah.
Okay, so just the most succinct way, or the nicest way of putting it, reaching for the impossible, reach for the
Yeah.
impossible.
Reach for the impossible, reaching for the impossible, something in those lines I quite like.
I'd say
I
reaching
think
for the impossible.
Yeah,
Reaching
it
for
gets
the...
across the message I think that I'm trying to portray.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think, I mean, very mind difference, but like reaching for the impossible rather than reach means like you don't just do it once. You're
Yes.
reaching, you're doing it over and over again, you're trying, you're pushing,
Yeah.
reaching.
True.
Yeah, you're always
And that's
pushing.
what yeah. And also you are doing that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
So you're involved. Yeah.
It's current.
It's current.
Nice.
I love
Amazing
it.
title. I love that. That's an awesome title.
Nice.
That's
It is.
an awesome title.
Yeah, well, Seb, thank you very, very much. This has been, well, it's been amazing listening to you. We've had to fight with the software a little bit, but
Yeah.
it's been really, really wonderful. And I think I was saying to Yona that how everything you say seems so considered, but also about particularly what you're saying right at the end about how, yes, it's about you and your big dreams, but actually so much of what's important to you is about sharing that with others and getting others involved in the same way because of something that's given you so much. And I think that's, as Yona talks about legacy, I think that's an even such a broader legacy to leave as well, and really, really inspiring. So yeah, thank you for your time with us. Thank you for sharing that with us and for what you do and inspiring others. It's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it was really fun. I've really enjoyed it. It's been great to be on here.
Thank you so much. Yeah, that is where we will wrap up this main episode. So yeah, thanks again to Sebastian Musson, and but Seb is going to stay around for one more dive, which is our bonus section, a few lighthearted questions. So if you're not there already, the link will be in the show notes, and otherwise we'll see you in the next one. Thank you very much.